It's been a few chapters now since the end of Satoru Gojo, and since the end of The Strongest. With a last-minute move made at the 11th hour, Sukuna used Maharaga's blueprint for tearing through the Limitless in his curse technique Dismantle to slice down Satoru Gojo. Of course, since then, the fandom has been everywhere with theories and predictions on how Jujutsu Kaisen Strongest can return to the story in a way that makes sense. When looking at every way for Gojo to return back to the story, one of them is really striking. It leads to Gojo's return, but not the Gojo we remember, not at all like the Gojo we've known before. In this video, I want to cover a theory around Gojo's return that would definitely be the biggest twist to the story so far, and Kenjaku's greatest play as the final villain of Jujutsu Kaisen. If you would enjoy more Jujutsu Kaisen content like this, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe, because YouTube tells me that 99% of you guys who watch my videos just aren't subscribed, so please subscribe and comment on some video ideas you want to see be done down below. Like I've already mentioned before, Gojo seems to have passed on. Even aside from his lifeless body split into two on the ground below, we've seen him interact in this afterlife-like sequence, and we see Gojo speaking with characters who have died ages ago. Nanami, Haibara, and even Suguru Geto all appear in this dreamlike place, talking with Gojo. Of course, it's all possible that Gojo's simply in a daze, and he's dreaming delusion, or maybe even hallucinating from the amount of damage he's taken through his battle with Sukuna, but assume for a second that Gojo has actually passed on. What now happens to the body of Satoru Gojo, one of the strongest bodies the world has ever seen? His body, of course, is still ingrained with his limitless curse technique, and also still contains his 6 eyes. Those two together not only make the rarest combination of abilities in the series, but probably the strongest combination of inherited abilities the series has ever seen, and definitely something that Kenjaku can make use of. Kenjaku's of course currently inhabiting Geto's body, but of course there's no doubt in my mind that he'd prefer Gojo's. He knows better than most the true powers of the 6 eyes, and Gojo's not the first person he's come across in his lifetime spanning across hundreds of years to wield such a powerful asset. According to Tengen, Kenjaku's already fought a couple of 6 eyes users in the past, and he lost twice. After the second time, Kenjaku took no chances and killed the 6 eyes user only a month after being born. Nonetheless, the 6 eyes user still ended up appearing and interfering with Kenjaku's plans, which is why he switched to sealing Satoru Gojo instead. Because only one user of the 6 eyes can be alive at once, having Gojo alive but locked away in a place where he's no longer a threat to Kenjaku works perfectly. Now that Gojo's supposedly dead, he needs to find another way to make sure the 6 eyes user is still around, but in a way that ensures that another one won't be born, and taking Gojo's body solves that issue. In the fanbook, Gege Akutami, the mangaka for the series, is asked a question about why Kenjaku didn't choose to take the body of Toji Zenin or Satoru Gojo and instead decided to take the body of Suguru Geto. He comments that taking over Gojo's body would have been impossible, but only because, to put it simply, you can't kill him. Now that Gojo's dead, that problem doesn't exist anymore, and it's the perfect time for Kenjaku to take his next body, the body of Satoru Gojo. With Gojo's body, Kenjaku could become unstoppable. He'd have complete control over the limitless curse technique, and along with the 6 eyes, Kenjaku would be the most stacked and well-equipped sorcerer in the entire series. He's already been revealed to be holding multiple curse techniques as it is, and I don't doubt that there's more up Kenjaku's sleeve that are just yet to be revealed. I mean, after all, Kenjaku's been body hopping for over the course of 1,000 years, so even if he lived in every body for 100 years each, Kenjaku has a body count of 10. Wait, I didn't mean to put it like that. His go-to curse technique since taking over Suguru Geto's body has obviously been curse spirit manipulation, and despite only having control of Geto's body for about a year, he's attained what seems to be full mastery over curse spirit manipulation. Kenjaku can clearly use Geto's technique not only strategically, but swiftly, and has expressed a clear understanding of what made Geto a special grade in the first place. Along with taking control of Yuji's mother's body and her curse technique, he's already showcased how powerful and formidable it can be to face off against Kaori Itadori's anti-gravity based curse technique. In combat, we've seen Kenjaku quickly be able to switch between the two curse techniques with ease, and still use both at an insanely high level. Not only did Kenjaku use reverse curse technique to create the reversal of Kaori's technique, but he also used it as a part of his domain expansion against Yuki Tsukumo and temporarily knocked her to the ground. That was only with one attack, by the way. Kenjaku stripped away her simple domain and hit her with one attack, and she fell down to the ground, looking absolutely destroyed. I don't care if she opened up her domain or not. Stop placing Yuki next to Kenjaku on tier list. He managed to pull off a mini Uzumaki, a miniature version of Geto's maximum technique, and use Kaori Itadori's technique to create a domain with his own body to escape Yuki's black hole. Something people also don't give Kenjaku that much credit for was that within seconds of absorbing Mahito's curse technique, he was already using Idol Transfiguration. In that moment, Kenjaku didn't just manipulate the souls of 1, 5, or even 10 individuals, but every awakened player of the Culling games, and on top of that, those individuals who contain the souls of players from the past as well. Within seconds, Kenjaku used Mahito's curse technique on a scale that we've never seen Mahito perform on, and once again without any practice from Kenjaku. Without a doubt, Kenjaku is one of the most adept users of Jujutsu in the entire series. His wide variety of high-level techniques prove to me that he'd have little trouble at all taking over Gojo's Limitless. The fanbook also says that Kenjaku has the memories of the bodies he's taken over, so in a way, Kenjaku's gonna have first-hand experience on what it's like using techniques like red, blue, and even purple. He's also gonna have all of Gojo's fighting experience against everyone Gojo's fought from Jogo, Toji, and even Sukuna, and also knowledge on Gojo's students like Yuta Akotsu and Kinji Akari. When speaking with Jogo before the Shibuya incident, Kenjaku clearly has more than a basic understanding of the Limitless. He explains to Jogo that Gojo's reversal red outputs twice as much cursed energy as blue, and he's even aware of how Gojo uses blue for high-speed movement, along with the level of which Gojo can use blue normally that would be effective against Jogo and Hanami in the train station. Not only that, but Kenjaku even tells Jogo that inside of Unlimited Void, anyone who touches Satoru Gojo is immune to the passive effects of standing inside the domain. Keep in mind that what Kenjaku just said hadn't actually been revealed yet and only implied, and the only other person in the entire series to figure this out was Ryomen Sukuna, who figured it out by looking through Yuji Itadori's eyes while he was experiencing the same thing live in person while obviously standing inside of the Unlimited Void. I honestly have no idea how Kenjaku learned this much about Gojo's techniques. Maybe it's from the memories he has from being in Geto's body, but that's just an assumption. The point I'm making is that Kenjaku clearly has more than a basic understanding of the Limitless Curse technique, which can definitely help him quickly get a grasp on Gojo's arsenal. Kaori's anti-gravity technique itself is just of course manipulating gravity, and the Limitless is just spatial manipulation, and they're not at all the same, but the experience can help Kenjaku get a faster understanding of the Limitless because of the similarities in between. So how hard would it be for Kenjaku to take over Gojo's body? The first real inconvenience that comes to mind when talking about if Kenjaku can take over Gojo's body, it's pretty obvious, but it's currently cut in half. But then again, considering how badly damaged Geto's body was before Kenjaku took it over, I don't doubt it's still possible. Gojo had full-on unalived Geto before Kenjaku took over, so it's not like Kenjaku needs Gojo's body to be in some sort of functional condition to take over in the first place. It's also said in the fanbook that the only thing that Gojo could have done to prevent Kenjaku's takeover was to fully burn Geto's body instead of handing it off to Shoko. You can also find in the technique's description that it's called the technique that exceeds biological reasoning. With these two things in mind, I don't doubt it's possible. Kenjaku also seems to be more than capable of using reverse curse technique to repair his own body during his fight with Yuki Tsukumo, so worst comes to worst, it's not like Kenjaku couldn't just apply some reverse curse technique. Now, one thing to keep in mind that we don't really know for sure is that if Satoru Gojo is actually dead, can Kenjaku take his 6 eyes even after Gojo is passed? Like I mentioned earlier, only one user of the 6 eyes can exist at the same time, so no 2 users of the 6 eyes will ever coexist. In the small window between Gojo's passing and Kenjaku's takeover, if another child is born with the 6 eyes, I think Kenjaku's out of luck. Aside from that being the craziest coincidence, to prove that Kenjaku has the worst luck in the series, I don't think it ever actually happened. Tengen, the Star Plasma Vessel, and the 6 eyes are all tied together by fate. Kenjaku already killed the 6 eyes user before, but it didn't change the fated day where one would appear during Tengen's next merger. But now on the other hand, things have changed completely. Tengen's currently being controlled by Kenjaku, and he's already taken out the last Star Plasma Vessel Yuki Tsukumo, and there's more missing pieces this time than just a 6 eyes user. From what we can gather, Gojo's body should still be on the battlefield along with Kenjaku's cursed spirits. Using these spirits, Kenjaku can have constant surveillance of the battlefield and can even see the fighting ground so clearly that he can track those like Maki Zenin who normally can't be located due to her lack of cursed energy. Using these spirits, it would be incredibly easy for Kenjaku to locate Gojo's body and take control. It's an easy power-up for Kenjaku and an even more formidable threat to our heroes, even surpassing Ryomen Sukuna. Gojo's students taking on an evil version of their sensei would be harder than it seems. Gojo had trained his mind for a month to feel comfortable taking on Sukuna, but even at that, Gojo can only feel nothing from beating on Megami because he remembered that he looks like Toji. Gojo's students are gonna have to take on this Gojo-looking figure and probably barely make it out alive, even assuming that they all work together as a unit. Judging by the current state of our heroes, there's only one outcome where I can see Kenjaku taking over Satoru Gojo as his only option to defeat Jujutsu High. As it stands right now, Yuji Itadori, Kinji Akari, and Higuruma have all entered the battlefield. After Kashimo had made his way after Sukuna, Hikari followed and began taking on Yurame to be sure that there'd be no third partying during Kashimo's battle with the King of Curses. After Kashimo had been eventually defeated, Yuji and Higuruma appear, dropping in on Sukuna as Akari's domain shatters while he dashes back at Yurame. As for Kenjaku, he's currently fighting Takaba, and of course it's the goofiest fight fight Jujutsu Kaisen has ever seen. In order for Kenjaku to complete his goal of assimilating all of Japan into life forms that have evolved with Tengen, he needs to eliminate every single player that's currently left in the Culling Games. He can't complete his goal without taking out some of the biggest players in the series. Yuta, Kotsu, and Kinshi Ikari are both considered players in the Culling Games, along with most of our heroes from Jujutsu High. When planning for the aftermath, Yuta, Hikari, Meimei, Kusakabe, and Angel all sit and strategize for possible outcomes for Gojo's battle with Sukuna. Angel recommends that they ambush Kenjaku before the end of Gojo's battle with Sukuna. Even if Gojo does defeat Sukuna, they're still all going to be at risk because Kenjaku is still breathing and still getting closer to achieving his goal of assimilating all of Japan. Hikari realizes the same flaw with Kenjaku's plan that I just mentioned, that it requires the elimination of every Culling Game player, and because of that, he doesn't seem too worried. Yuta actually ends up agreeing with Hikari and says that as long as him and Hikari are fighting Sukuna, Kenjaku can't reach his goal. Takaba was picked as the best shot for taking on Kenjaku. He's their only asset that could have been split at the moment. They need everyone they can if Satoru Gojo loses, especially the heavy hitters that Kenjaku mentioned before the fight even started, Maki, Hikari, and Yuta. Despite Kusakabe thinking it's best if Maki takes on Kenjaku, he agrees that splitting forces is a bad idea, which is why Kenjaku is currently taking on Takaba instead. Assuming of course Kenjaku manages to get through Takaba, until the fight against Sukuna is concluded, Kenjaku will wait to take out what's left of Jujutsu High if Sukuna hadn't done it already for him. Angel seems to be well aware that if Gojo loses and they achieve a narrow victory against Sukuna, it's gonna have them on death's door fighting Kenjaku. However, if Angel's wrong and their forces are still too formidable for Kenjaku even after Sukuna, that's the only outcome that I believe it's necessary for Kenjaku to take control of Satoru Gojo to assimilate all of Japan. I don't really think it'd be needed in really any other circumstance for Kenjaku to take over Gojo's body. For the sake of the video, let's assume that for a second that exactly what I described does somehow actually happen. Sukuna is defeated and Kenjaku takes over Gojo's body to eliminate the rest of the Culling Games. Can Jujutsu High still survive? Honestly, their chances are pretty low, but I don't think it's impossible, especially when considering how strong they must have became when they were fighting Sukuna. It would completely depend on their state after taking down the King of Curses, and obviously their chances are going to skyrocket depending on how fit they are to take on Kenjaku next. Defeating Sukuna is already an impossible task in itself, and it takes a massive jump in power for our heroes to make it out in the first place. Many in the fandom believe that the jump in power that I just described is impossible because of the massive gap that currently exists even just between Satoru Gojo and everybody else around, so much less Ryoma and Sukuna. But then again, throughout Jujutsu Kaisen, we've already seen massive jumps in power that have completely flipped the odds and the rate of success for our heroes. During Gojo's second round against Toji Zenin and Maki's second round against Naoya, we've seen shifts in mentality that led to both of these characters getting blitzed by their opponents to taking them down with little to no difficulty. Again, I don't think seeing massive jumps in power would be that crazy, but maybe it is a stretch to believe that any single one of them can overpower Sukuna, but then it's important to remember as well that they're all fighting together as a unit for a reason. Out of everybody at their disposal, they chose Takaba to go after Kenjaku because they know they need all of Jujutsu High's strongest fighting together as one. Gojo said before that many of his students have the potential to surpass him one day, and 3 of those students have already reserved the right to enter the battlefield. They have the room and the potential to grow, and defeating Kenjaku inside of Gojo's body serves as another way for them to fulfill the narrative for Gojo's students becoming even better than himself one day.